2018-2019 NHL season preview featuring the Washington Capitals. The Washington Capitals are now defending Stanley Cup champions. This means it will be twice as hard to win the Stanley Cup next year, especially because they lost a few key players in the offseason. The Capitals' main offseason priority was re-signing John Carlson. John Carlson was re-signed to an 8-year deal worth $8 million per season. Tom Wilson was also re-signed to a 6-year deal worth $5.5 million per season. Michael Kempny and Devontae-Smith-Pelly were also re-signed by the Capitals. To make cap room, the Capitals had to trade Brooks Orpik and Philip Grubauer. In addition, the Capitals also lost Jay Beagle to free agency after being bought out by the Avalanche. Brooks Orpik signed a 1-year deal to return to Washington. Heading into the 2018-2019 season, there is no change for the Capitals core. The key forwards are still the same. They will still be Alex Ovechkin, Evgeny-Kuznetsov, Nicholas Backstrom, and T.J. Oshie. Defensively, their top four is still the same, except John Carlson will need to play a bigger role on the team. Braden Holtby will definitely be the number one goalie for the Capitals, especially with Philip Grubauer gone. He will need to play like a true number one goalie the whole season. The two players that will be key to the Capitals' success this year are Lars Eller and Jacob Vrana. Those two players stepped up in the playoffs. They will need to provide consistent secondary scoring for the Capitals. Losing Jay Beagle hurts, as he was a reliable fourth-line center and a great penalty killer. However, Washington should be able to replace him with someone else in the lineup. Expect the Washington Capitals to be back in the playoffs next season. However, it will be a tough road back to the Stanley Cup. This is how the lineup looks like right now. The first line is Alex Ovechkin, Evgeny Kuznetsov, and Tom Wilson. The second line is Jacob Vrana, Nicholas Backstrom, and T.J. Oshie. The third line is Andre Burakovsky, Lars Eller, and Brett Connolly. The fourth line is Chandler Stevenson, Nick Dowd, and Devontae-Smith-Pelly. First D pair is Michael Kempny and John Carlson. Second D pair is Dmitry Orlov and Matt Niskanen. Third D pair is Brooks Orpik and Madison Bowey. Goaltenders are Braden Holtby and P.Copley. Next, I'll be previewing the Vegas Golden Knights for the upcoming NHL season. 2018-2019 NHL season preview featuring the Vegas Golden Knights. As the new kid on the block last season, the Vegas Golden Knights had a tremendous first season. They made it to the Stanley Cup Finals but lost to a more talented Washington Capitals team in 5 games. After losing in the Stanley Cup Finals, the Vegas Golden Knights signed Paul Stastny, Daniel Carr, and Nick Holden in free agency. Vegas also locked up Marc-Andre Fleury for 3 more years at $7 million per season. The Vegas Golden Knights still have 2 key players to re-sign, J.Theodore and William Karlsson. William Karlsson led the Golden Knights in goals and points last season. However, this was his first good season in the league. Vegas may want to play it safe and sign a bridge contract to make him prove that he's worth a long-term deal. J.Theodore most likely will get a long-term extension just because he is a young puck-moving defenseman. The first line of Vegas remains the same as last year. However, the rest of the lineup is subject to change. There is speculation that Vegas wants to add another top 6 forward and a top 4 defenseman. While it would be nice to add more pieces, Vegas should not overpay for players. As of right now, Vegas has a solid group of players, but can Vegas repeat what they did last season? It is clear that the Golden Knights are a system team, so when they face a team like the Capitals, they may struggle. Marc-Andre Fleury is the key to the team. He needs to play like an elite goalie. Now that other teams know what the Vegas Golden Knights are going to do, Gerard Gallant and his coaching staff need to make adjustments so that they are not predictable. Since the Vegas Golden Knights are playing in the Pacific Division, they have a shot at winning the division again, as there are no clear favorites. This is how the lineup looks like right now. The first line is Jonathan Marchessault, William Karlsson, and Riley Smith. The second line is A.Roussel-J.Beagle-J.Virtanen, and Thomas Tatar. The third line is Daniel Carr, Cody Eakin, and Alex Tuch. The fourth line is Thomas Nosek, pair Edward Bellemare and Ryan Reaves. First D pair is Brayden McNabb and Nate Schmidt. Second D pair is Theodore and Derek Engelland. Third D pair is Colin Miller and Nick Holden. Goaltenders are Marc-Andre Fleury and Malcolm-Subban. Next, I'll be previewing the Vancouver Canucks for the upcoming NHL season. 2018-2019 NHL season preview featuring the Vancouver Canucks. The Vancouver Canucks are coming off a dreadful season, but they may re-in for even a worse season this year. The biggest issue last season for the Canucks was poor defense and goaltending. Another problem for the Canucks last season was the lack of secondary scoring. In the 2018 draft, the Canucks drafted defenseman Quentin Hughes, an elite defensive talent. In the first round last year, they drafted Olli Juolevi, complete all-around defenseman. These two defensemen should play a huge part on the Vancouver blue line in the future. However, it is unlikely that either of these two players play for the Canucks this season. In free agency, the Canucks signed Jay Beagle and Antoine Roussel, 2 very solid role players. Heading into the 2018-2019 season, their greatest weakness of the team is goaltending. Their goalies right now are Jacob Markstrom and Anders Nilsson. Those were the same 2 goalies at the beginning of last season. Vancouver's defense is the same as last season, so we should expect the same results. Their first line actually is pretty good. It features 2 up-and-coming stars with Bo-Horvat and Brock Boeser. The second line features 2 young kids in Elias Pettersson and Jonathan Dahlen. Both have very bright futures. The Canucks' third and fourth line have a good mix of youth and veteran forwards. Looking at the depth chart, the forwards actually aren't bad. However, their defense and goaltending aren't good enough. Because the Canucks have so much young talent in their lineup, they will go through some growing pains. On top of this, then consistency in goal will make the Canucks a bottom feeder in the league. This is how the lineup looks like right now. The first line is S.Baertschi-B.Horvat and Brock Boeser. The second line is Jonathan Dahlen, Elias Pettersson, and Louis Eriksson. The third line is Marcus Granlund, Brandon Sutter, and Sam Gagner. The fourth line is Antoine Roussel-J.Beagle and Jake Virtanen. The first D pair is Alex Edler and Chris Tanev. The second D pair is M.Del Zotto-E and Erik Gudbranson. The third D pair is Ben Hutton and Troy Stetcher. Goalies are Jacob Markstrom and Anders Nilsson. Next, I'll be previewing the Toronto Maple Leafs in an upcoming NHL season.